So good day. We're learning today Perek Beis in Igeres haTeshuva on page 182. The Alter Rebbe in the first chapter told us two very important nekudas, two very important points. One is that the mitzvah min haTorah for tshuva is azivas achet bilvad, forsaking sin from here on, making a resolution: I will never do again this sin, and I won't bichlal. In general, I won't sin against God because it's rebellion. Simultaneously, the Alter Rebbe makes it clear that although the mitzvah min haTorah for tshuva is what I said earlier, nevertheless, shleimus haTeshuva, I didn't use that word yesterday, but complete tshuva includes kapara. Kapara means to wipe away, to rinse away the stain that was created by the sin of the past. And to do that, just making a resolution that I won't do it anymore doesn't take away the stain. To get rid of the stain, you have to put the shirt with detergent in the wash machine. Otherwise, the stain comes back out with the same stain. So what this teaches us is the importance of shleimus haTeshuva, which is the adjunct to tshuva, but very much to tshuva. So this is what we learned in chapter 1. One more point. He also said that tainus, fasting, is not an integral part of tshuva. Confession is, vidui is, but not tainus. And he brought several rhetorical questions about fasting, and he said that fasting is those verses in Tanakh that imply that fasting is important for tshuva. It's just to annul a bad decree on yourself or on your family, on your community. Okay? So in other words, the whole idea of fasting is not a chelik, a part of tshuva. The Alter Rebbe is going to continue explaining that in today's chapter. Let's go. Perek Beis. Kol zeh li'inyan kapara mechilas ha'ovid. All of the above that we discussed, what tshuva is and what complete tshuva is regarding kapara, total atonement and forgiveness, u'mechilas ha'ovid, and forgiveness for sin, that a person is atoned for completely. What is he atoned for? The fact that, number one, that he desecrated the command of the king. So therefore, when a person does complete tshuva, i.e., not only biblical tshuva, but also tshuva of, as mentioned in the end of Masechtas Yuma, the three different things, which is all elements of kapara. When a person, so you see, he calls it here kisha'asa tshuva shleima. We didn't have those words in chapter 1. So the Alter Rebbe is identifying the shloisha chalukei kapara that he begins Igeres HaKodesh with as tshuva shleima. The ein maskir and loy davar, and when a person does that, we don't remind him of davar v'chatzi davar, of anything and no word and no half a word. In other words, you're completely forgiven. So when a person comes to heaven, there's no mention, hey, on this and this day you did this and this sin, because you did already such tshuva that incorporated kapara, and the stain is gone. There's no remnant of the stain. That's what he says here. But Yom Adin, we don't mention.
Question?
Yes, sure.
So, I've heard that on Yom Kippur, when we clap al chet, so we're clapping al chet not just on the sins that we did this year, but on the sins that we did previous year. So we keep doing we keep asking for mechila kapara, even for sins that were done many years ago. We may have done teshuva for those sins. So is it the case that if we do teshuva shleima, we still need to clap on that?
No, that vort that you said, it doesn't sound like it has a halachic You heard it from a halachic perspective or a drush perspective?
It may have been drush, but we say al chet on this and al chet on that and al chet on this.
I understand, but here we're talking about halacha. So when you ask, we include years before. That's a nice
so
word.
Let me find the question. Once you do tshuva shlema and you have kapara, do you still need to do teshuva for that chet?
No.
Or
no. The answer is no. But Isser, who knows if they did tshuva shlema? That's the problem. But if technically, you're right, if technically we knew we did tshuva shlema, really, technically you wouldn't have to say it. Now, we would say it anyway because it's matbeah shetiktu chachamim. There's the concept in Chazal. Since our sages established this to be the nusach, we are in no position to omit it. I mean, that's the position of so-called Orthodox Judaism versus conservative and Reform. Conservative, where they started to omit, they took out karbonis and different things because it's only relevant when we have a Beis HaMikdash. No Beis HaMikdash, no karbonis. And we say no. He nitzchis is everlasting. So the same would be with the al-chet. But in concept, you're right. And then there would also be the idea spiritually that spiritually it still exists. So on the spiritual level, your vort could be a vort, but I doubt that you heard that in halachic terms. And as the Alter Rebbe says here, and he's by the way, he's quoting halacha and Gemara. I mean, he's just using his own words. Actually, we would have to look into the Rambam. If the Rambam uses those words Shuva Shleim and Hilchos Tshuva, I don't remember. If any of you come across it, let me know. Does the Rambam use the words Shuva Shlema after mentioning the details of kapara? It could be it's even in the Rambam. But I'll kopanim, but at least as far as we're concerned, let's continue the text here. The Rebbe is saying, the Alter Rebbe is saying, it's a very powerful language, Hillel. B'yom adin, when you come to heaven, and it's your time to be, you're coming before the judge, the Almighty Hashem, and the court, and the tribunal, and all that. They're not going to mention anything, not even an iota, not even a hint to the past. Why? Because you did tshuva shleima. Yes, Hillel.
What does the phrase chetzi davar add here?
It's an aphorism. It's like, we don't mention anything, and we don't mention a hint to it. In other words, it's been so forgiven that sometimes, there's a mark left over. Take a pencil and you write something and you erase. You still have a leftover from the erasing. Davar v'chatzi davar is an expression in Chazal when you want to express that it's been totally eradicated, totally removed. There isn't a trace of it left. That's the lashon chatzi davar. Okay. Let's continue. And therefore, to be punished on the day of judgment, chas v'sholem, it won't be the case because we did tshuva shleiba. B'olam haba, and the person will have olam haba, v'nifter l'gamri min adin b'olam haba, and the person is exempt from judgment in olam haba, a clean slate straight into olam haba, because the person has done tshuva shleima. So remember, I'll say it again. That on one hand, Yoini, tshuva min ha-Torah is saying I won't do this again, right? And I won't rebel again. But tshuva shleima requires kapara. And what we understand from this chevra is that if you did tshuva, you did tshuva. But you didn't do tshuva shleima, you will be judged for that when it comes to heaven. You're going to have to go through a process to get that out of your soul. Because unless there's kapara, which is tshuva shleima, there's a stain and a mark. And our neshama was given to us pristine, without stains or mark. It's a brand new shirt you bought from the store. You open up the package and it's beautiful and exact and right. That's the way you have to return your neshama to Hashem. How do we do that? The answer is through tshuva shleima. It's not enough just to do tshuva min haTorah. That's what we're saying here. Let's continue. Now the Alter Rebbe adds a very interesting tidbit. It's not just a tidbit, it's a very important point. For one to be favorable, this is new words that he didn't use until now, before God, and desired and beloved before Hashem, like you were before you sinned, for your work, your avoda, your service would be considered causing pleasure for God. The Torah says you have to bring a carbon oila. The carbon oila sense it's all for God, right? Afilu mitzvahs asay kala. Even if you desecrate it, a positive commandment that's considered kala, a lenient one, an easy one. She'em b'kodesh u'b'shleishmayim. There's no excision and no execution of bezin associated. K'mishdosh Razal b'teiros kayanim, as the Razal expound in Teiros Kayanim. That's on Vayikra, the Medrash. It says, "V'nirtzoloi." By bringing the carbon oila, you are favorable to God, right? You're favorable like you were before Chet. So let's now dissect this. The stain has been removed through tshuva shleima, but that is in the abstention. In other words, you did. What about now being considered the original that you were, in the sense of I really enjoy you, you're favorable? Not yet. Not yet. To be v'nir tzeloi, look, let's break it down. Someone does something to you. You forgive them. Why do you forgive them? Because you see they've worked on themselves. They made a change. Okay, Hillel, in your work with addictions and everything else, right? I would think that you've seen someone who's cleaned up their act, changed themselves. As you've shared over the years some stories, right? Nevertheless, it's hard to say that they are as favorable as they were before, if you knew them before they started with their addictions and their issues. It's just not right. You're going to look at the person, you'll say, okay, he was once an addict. He was once a troublemaker. He now cleaned his act. God forgave him. Man forgave him and all that. But v'nir tzaloi, he's favorable. One second, Hillel. V'nir tzaloi, that's a whole different ballgame. Chazal teach us, Yoini, that the reason we brought a carbon and a carbon oila specifically was to accomplish in God's eyes the v'nir tzaloi, that Hashem not only forgives us, He wants us. In other words, we're His first choice, not that we're His second choice. In other words, until this concept of v'nir tzaloi, if you put two people in front of us, and one never did anything wrong, and one did but did tshuva, there's no question we're going to up here we're going to look more favorably on the one who didn't do anything ever wrong. So that's what the Torah says by bringing the carbon, and later is going to tell us that fasting is in lieu of the carbon that accomplishes v'nir tzaloi, which is an amazing thought, which is such a big push for the idea of fasting, which again, we'll talk about it soon. The Alter Rebbe later on doesn't believe we should do excessive fasting. But the concept of fasting is to accomplish, I'll use this word, favoritism in God's eyes. but positive favoritism, not nepotism favoritism, which is negative. Holy favoritism. Hillel, what do you want to say?
I was just thinking about in my work, the one person I encountered who I truly thought of as a person who had done tshuva. He had done a heinous crime, drug infused, and he went to jail, went to prison at a very young age. But in prison, he really worked on himself, and he came out, and he ended up working in a local store in my neighborhood, so I'd see him often outside of the work that we did together. And I think that part of it was that even though he had done a remarkable kind of tshuva, and he could never really forget that he was capable of doing such a thing. And I could never forget it.
Oh.
You could not remember that he was capable of doing something.
Oh, so that last point that you couldn't forget it. That's something I was learning this and preparing it. I'm thinking about it like, how can we reach a place where it's not just about forgetting Hillel. It's about really believing that this person is so clean and so pure and so tshuva oriented that it's impossible for him to become the way he was. Just like
The Rambam tells us, also Isha, also Makom.
Yeah, okay. I understand. But the Alter Rebbe is adding here, you could say, to the Rambam, that we have to accomplish v'nir tzaloi, and we learn from the Korban Oila, that the whole purpose of the Oila was ligram, to cause nachas ruach l'koinai, pleasure to Hashem. What does it mean, pleasure? That our avodah, when we brought a Korban Oila when we brought a sacrifice Abraham, Korban Oila was we should attain God's favor in a way that is new, chadash. That was the purpose. I want to continue now because you'll see something important here. And he says, what does it say in the Gemara there? The oila mechaperes al mitzvos aseh. The Korban Oila atones for a desecration of a positive commandment. V'hi doiron, and it's considered a present la'achar she'osa tshuva. After you do tshuva, you bring a present. V'nimcha lo ha'oinish, and the punishment is forgiven. U'ka'adam, and it's similar to a person shesarach b'melech. He sinned against the king, ufaisoi ayidei praklitin. Come along, deputies, and speak positively about this individual to the king. But wait, he asked forgiveness from the king, and he demonstrated that he did tshuva. Why do you need to have paraklitin, deputies, to speak on his behalf that he's really a good guy, that he really did tshuva? The answer is because that's to accomplish v'nir tzaloi. That's what the Alter Rebbe is bringing. That's to accomplish this added phase, which is you're as favorable as anyone else, umachaloi, and therefore the king forgives him wholeheartedly. Avol became sheleach. No, I learned it wrong. Sorry, I learned it wrong. That although the person is asking forgiveness from the king, and the king and faisa means he mephias. Mephias means I'm looking for the English word. It's not coming to me. He speaks.
He appeases.
He appeases. Thank you. That's the word. And he appeases. He has deputies who appease him to the king. He's being appeased to the king by the deputies, and the king forgives him. Nevertheless, he sends a gift. Mincha means also a gift. Lefana for the king. So that he should become favorable to see the face of the king. You know what the implication is? That without the mincha and the gift, the king says, I don't want to see you still. You're not, it's like, not I don't want to see that you're a sinner. I forgive you. But what's still missing is the Yisrat Eloi. Yisrat Eloi is a very, very... So in other words, Yisrat Eloi, on one hand, listen to this, Chevra. On one hand, Yisrat Eloi has nothing to do with tshuva. I've done tshuva. I've done shleimus haTeshuva. But nevertheless, you want to be considered favorable? Oh, for that you have to go one step beyond. In this case of the mashal, bring the gift to the king, shower the king with such love and closeness that the king now sees that you are, the word in Yiddish is getrai. Getrai means you are sincere, very sincere, and that you establish your connection now with the king in a way, the way it was even before you sinned and did tshuva. And as Hillel said, it's, he only met one person like that, but even then, there was always a remnant. It's a very hard thing, but the Torah says, Hillel, that this can be done, and that's the purpose of the Korban Noila. Okay, so by the way, this is in Chassidus. This is a pasuk in Chumash with a Rashi with a Gemara, where the Gemara says that this is the accomplishment of the Korban Noila. So if you extrapolate that, that means the Torah is saying that when we commit a sin, Baruch, and we do tshuva for the sin, and then we kind of bring the gift to Hashem afterwards, we become nisratz Eloi, favorable to God. That's an amazing accomplishment. And guess what? Who allows that accomplishment? Hashem does. Hashem puts into the world for a Yid the ability, Moshe Myers, the ability to reach a state of not just tshuva, and not just tshuva shlema, not just one, and not just two, but even ritzui, favoritism, being favorable in God's eyes. Let's continue. Veloshe mechaperes, and the term forgiven, the words in the Torah is he's favorable in God's eyes and he's atoned for. It doesn't refer to the other type of kapora that we spoke about in Tshuva, Shleimus HaKapora, El Lechaper Lefnei Hashem. Here we use the word, the Torah used the word Lechaper to mean Lios Nachas Ruach Lekoinai. We're causing pleasure to our master. Kedis Sham Begemara, as it says the Gemara, K'mach Tomim Yil Erotzen. There's another verse, sincere will be your favoritism. In other words, the tmimus, the sincerity is expressed in the willingness, in the favoritism. Achshav, now look what he says now, She'elonu Karbin. That was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. But now that we don't have a Karbin, L'hafik Ratzon Hashem, to bring out, L'hafik means to bring this willingness of God towards us to be real, that we should be favorable in His eyes. Hatainas ubemakim karbin. This is where fasting comes in. Tainus is in place of karbin. What does the Gemara say? That when you fast, miut chelbi vidami, there's a reduction of one's blood and fat, meaning vis-a-vis, fasting, shenismayit, which has been minimized because of fasting. It should be, this activity of fasting should be, ki'ilu hikrafti lefonecha, as though I have brought before you a carbon. That's what Chazal say about fasting. Fasting is the same idea, the mevukish, meaning the objective in fasting is not to be weak, it's not to be dismissive, it's not to be dormant, it's to be favorable. But in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, when we had a carbon, we brought the carbon oila. Now that we don't, so we do it through fasting. That's why we find amongst many Tanoim sages, Amoroim, shal davar kal, even for something lenient, we find in Chazal they fasted many fasts. Ma'oid. Look at this. Tiniest harbi ma'oid. Kamei Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, which was a kohen, shoyamater. He permitted Shetehei Pora, top of page 70, Tzadik Beis. He permitted a Pora, an ox, a cow, to Yotzeh Spiritzua, to go out on Shabbos, Shebein Kaneh, with a strap that you move the cow, Shebein Kaneh b'Shabbos. And the Chachamim said to Rebbe Elazar, it's forbidden. And once his neighbor's cow went out like that with that strap on Shabbos, and he didn't make a protest. He didn't say, because he held it's forbidden. He held it's considered carrying, and you're allowing that to happen. And he didn't make a macho. So he fasted for not protesting, and his teeth became darkened because of the so much fasting. For not fulfilling the words of Chaveirov. In other words, even though he held you're allowed to, but since the Chachamim said you're not, so he should have made a protest. This is what I understand from the Gemara, and he didn't. What do we see? So we see that here it says clearly that he fasted so many fasts till his teeth became darkened from not eating, even though this is considered a lenient type of mitzvah that was desecrated. Second example, Rabbi Yoshua, who was a Levi, he's bringing a proof from a Kohen, a Levi Yisrael. So Rabbi Yoshua she'omar bushali midvrechem, I'm embarrassed of your words, Beis Shammai, whatever the Gemara is talking about there. V'hushchuru shinov, and his teeth became darkened again because he fasted so much. Third example, one time, just once, just one Shabbos, and we'll all be together. Just one time, his tzuah that he wears in the morning is supposed to be on the right. One side is colored black and dark, and he's supposed to, and it turned over to the raw side of the ritzua, the strap of the tefillin. And he fasted 40 fasts. So all of this, and he was a Yisro. So what does this show? That shows that these sages, even when they did kind of an insignificant sin, a lightweight sin, this isn't, hurting someone. It isn't not breaking Shabbos. And Yom Kippur, right? Just the Tzua, supposed to be on the black side. It turned over. He wanted tshuva, so he did a lot of fasts, 40 fasts. Says the Alter Rebbe, Keina Rabbis, and so we find many other examples of sages who did this. Now the Alter Rebbe says, okay, we'll stop here, and tomorrow we'll finish the Peirik in Mitzvah. So the point that the Alter Rebbe is making here is all about the power of tinus, fasting. So in other words, although he said he's arguing in the Igeres haTeshuva that tinus is not tshuva min haTorah for sure, and tinus isn't tshuva shlema, and tinus isn't vidui. So you would think that the whole idea of fasting is like superfluous. Says the Alter Rebbe, you should know there's a great importance given to tinus, to fasting. And the importance is that it's in lieu of carbon, of the carbonus. And just as the Torah says that the carbon oila, its purpose was that we should become favorable in God's eyes, not just that we were atoned and forgiven. And, but as Hillel said before, there's always a remnant that, he was the addict, he was the ganef, he was the sinner. You know what I'm saying? That attitude, which is common, it's very common. Even if you're not an addict, you're not a ganef, and whatever we do, it's like, we once did it. We once did it. And you look, the average person and the most looks, has that in the back of their mind. So here's the purpose of tinus and carbon. We should revert back to the true self, where God says, I created you because I want you. You're favorable. You're my nice guy. I want you on earth. I need you. I want you. That's what we should revert to. And how do we come back to that position? Through the tinus, through the carbon, and there's no carbonas, through the tinus. Chevra, we'll learn tomorrow. Zeit gesund. So this day was a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.